Alright, so we're checking out the latest and greatest flagship stack from SpeedyBee. This is the SpeedyBee F7 V3. You can get these separately. This one comes as a bundle. Yeah, a lot to unpack in this video. I'm probably going to forget to mention something. I'm sure some people will point out that in the comments below. I'm going to try and hit all the highlights, but I would encourage you to see the link in the video description to get all the details. This stack has a lot of features. It's basically like a premium stack in my opinion, but it's got a pretty good price. The prices are going to vary. Check the links in the description, especially with the price of F7 stacks these days. This is fairly reasonably priced, especially for everything that comes on this. So pretty impressed by that. And we'll talk about the details of the giveaway mentioned in the title a little bit later in the video. Just wait, I'll get to that at some point in the video later, so keep on watching. First off, let's go ahead and let's get the stuff out of the box here. And here's the flight controller. We'll take a close look at that. The gummies are already installed on these, pretty nice. And the 4-in-1 EC. Alright, so we got an XT60 here with 12 gauge wire, pretty big. So these are some 50 amp ECs, so that should be more than enough. We got a bunch of different connector types on here in the bag, and they are labeled, so that's pretty nice. So different connectors for your GPS, VTX, receivers, etc., camera connections. And here's some more. This one, I think this one goes from the flight controller to the ESC, and this one here looks like it's for DJI, probably for an air unit. So plenty of cables included. This one has solder pads and plugs. I'll get to that here in a second. A large 35 volt 1500 microfarad capacitor here. You got your long M3 screws and nuts. Gets a couple extra gummies there in case you lose any or break any. And yeah, let's take a look at the components. So this is the 4-in-1 ESC 50 amps. It's 32-bit 3 to 6S rated. It does come with a TVS diode on there for voltage spikes, along with the 1500 microfarad capacitor. You should be covered in most situations. Nice big solder pads for your motors. Let's see, we have them just on the one side. Big pads here for your battery lead, and little holes there for the capacitor, pass-through holes there, and looks like you can solder them probably with the wires on the end. So it goes like this. Probably can solder it like this, and then put solder on top and the bottom. That's probably going to give you the best contact versus just putting it on the top like that. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Here's a look at the bottom. 50 amp ESCs, BL32, 32-bit firmware on here. And it looks like we have some solder pads here in addition to the plug, so you can go either way. And the plug has a little bit of looks like kind of glue or some kind of material here on the edge. And there's a little bit of glue there on the edge of the connector to hold it down, so less likely for it to rip off. So it's kind of nice. They definitely thought of everything, although the bottom of the board is not conformal coated. That would be like the, probably something that would help a lot, especially if you tend to fly in wet, damp grass, for example. But it's easy enough for you to do that yourself. This is probably, I'll probably just go ahead and do that. Really nice big heatsink here. Obviously, keep the the MOSFETs cool in case you're really doing a lot of ripping and pushing the performance. You can see how the heatsink is connected there. It's probably glued on somehow. I'm not exactly sure how, but not going to rip it off just in case. But yeah, I like the connector there, and solder pads available if you need, but they are kind of on the small side. Here's the flight controller, F7 processor, huge 500 megabytes of onboard black box data. So typically a lot of boards come with 8, 16, maybe some will come with 32 megabytes. This is 500 megabytes, so giant black box chip on here. Comes with a barometer. Not sure exactly where that is, maybe there or there. These lights here will show you the battery voltage and how much battery you have, so you can, without having to plug in a voltage meter or plug in and look at your goggles, your video feed, you can see how much battery voltage your battery has. So just in case, sometimes some guys will accidentally plug in like a dead battery and then take off and then realize, oh damn, I put it a discharged battery instead of a full battery and have to come back and land. You can plug it in and see right away if you have full power or not. So this is a unique feature of this board. I haven't seen this from anyone else yet. Bootloader button here. You got your M3 holes and gummies already installed. Nice big solder pads for all your different connectors, UARTs, etc. So if you one of those guys that prefer soldering, lots and lots of big solder pads for you to use. USB-C port, of course, here. This has an updated new generation Bluetooth Wi-Fi chip on board. So, of course, this is compatible with the SpeedyBee app. So if you want to use the SpeedyBee app on your smartphone to configure your Betaflight settings and etc., this will connect through that, of course. And now this new chip is 33% faster. If you happen to want to flash the firmware from your smartphone directly to the board, this chip is 33% faster than the previous generation, so that's another plus. And yeah, flashing through the phone is kind of a new thing, but yeah, nowadays if you want to get the latest updates on your phone, you can do that without having to plug into your computer. So they definitely are making this so that it is very tailored towards its SpeedyBee app. So I'm told this has 8 motor outputs, so you can see motor outputs 5, 6, 7, and 8 over there. So if you're running an octocopter, this will work with that. Obviously, you'll have the other 4 motors are going to be somewhere here. I'll put up the wiring diagram somewhere on the screen. This is the bottom of the board, and you can see we have a giant voltage regulator there. I think there's another one on top. So I think this one's the 5 volt probably, and this one down here is the 9 volt. And this is, of course, will support DJI. And the 9 volts will also work well for your analog video transmitters. But for those of you guys that don't like soldering and prefer plugs, and on the other side of the board, you've got all these plugs available to you. And lots of options there. So I think these probably go to the ESC. Yeah, check the wiring diagram. I don't have this memorized off the top of my head. These 4 over here, this 1, 2, 3, and 4 are 4 special LEDs that they sent along. I'm going to show you those. So these are some LED boards with these connectors, and you can just plug this one into the board, and then one goes into the LED. It's a 4 LED board that, and they're I guess they're meant to be put on the bottom of the arms, so they're showing their diagram on their product page, and these just snap off. This holds them all together. Of course, you can use the solder pads in the bottom if you want, but most people probably just use the plugs, because I'll just plug in one over here, plug in on the other flight controller, and you're good to go. And yeah, they call them arm lights. They're definitely going to be programmable. There's 3 pins, so you have 4 lights there. You put them on your bottom of your arm, probably using some sticky, like VHB or something like that, and you have some lights under your arms. Pretty easy to do. I'll show that later in the video. But yeah, I think, yeah, there's the black box chip right there, and it's labeled branded SpeedyBee 512 megabytes. I don't think anyone else is doing anything quite that big. Yeah, it does of course all the fancy SpeedyBee stuff, wireless motor direction. You can change that in the SpeedyBee app, and you have the black box. I guess you can actually black box viewer that's built into the SpeedyBee app now as well, so you can actually do your flights and check the data on that chip via the SpeedyBee app. I'll show you that later after I get this into a build. But yeah, I think that should cover what the board looks like and all the features. I'm sure I've missed something important. Let me know what that is down in the comments. But what this is going to go into is this build here. So this is my SpeedyBee V2 frame, the 5-inch frame. I think I've had this for about a year now. Still working, no problems. But it's analog. I'm going to convert this to DJI. I'm going to put a Vista here in the back. Take out that stack here. That's a 20 by 20 stack, and we'll put in this 30 by 30 board. But I'll keep the same motors in the frame and everything. Yeah, so go ahead and I'll swap in this stuff. We'll take a look at what that looks like inside the frame here and check out the performance. Alright, so for those of you guys that are here for the giveaway, SpeedyBee will be sending one of this stack to a lucky winner. I am not going to go over the complicated rules here in this video just because it's going to waste a lot of time. There's going to be a link in the video description to an entry form, and all the rules will be explained there. So go to that, read those rules carefully before you enter, because if you just put a comment and thinking that you're going to win, that's not going to work. So just let you know, don't waste your time if that's what your goal is. Read the rules, follow the rules, and then you'll be able to enter properly. Alright, so here's what the finished build looks like. Very straightforward here. I didn't actually replace the motors. I just swapped out the stack and the FPV systems. So I put in the Vista and the camera first because that camera cable runs underneath the stack. And then I took off the 20x20 stack, and then I mounted the long screws for the 30x30 stack. Those long screws came with the SpeedyBee stack. Used those. Put on the 4-in-1 ESC first, soldered on the motor wires, and then connected the ESC to the flight controller with the included cable. I did solder on the Vista and the receiver instead of using the plugs. I just felt like doing that because the pads are big. It's pretty easy to solder, so I just went ahead and did that really quickly. I think it's because I didn't want to desolder the wires off of the receiver, and I just put the antennas kind of not on a great spot there, is underneath the cage and on top of the top plate or bottom plate, but I'm not really flying that far away with these 5-inch quads, just doing some freestyle nearby. You can see here I used the included wires, cables for the LEDs, and just zip tied it to the arms. Pretty simple, and I kind of put them on the back of the arms, not on the bottom, so you can see they're like this. So let me just go ahead and plug this in and show you. So that's what they look like. So when you're someone's flying behind you, if you put them on the side of the arm like that, they'll probably get a pretty good view of your quad versus the bottom. And I just put a little bit of VHB here on the end, and then zip tied down the other side. It's been holding up fine, no problems. The LEDs are programmable. I think these are just the default setup here, and you can change the colors and all that if you want to, whatever you like. I'm using the new gem fan. These are the Vanny props on this one. It's a pretty nice setup. I didn't do any tuning. I just used one of the presets for a 5-inch freestyle drone in Betaflight 4.3, and I did flash 431 on here. So that is pretty much it in terms of the setup. No tuning. Let's go ahead and I'll show you what the black box data looks like. Alright, so bringing up the SpeedyBee app here. Let's go ahead and connect to it via Bluetooth. And the SpeedyBee flight controller with F7 V3 is detected right away, so hit connect. It's very fast. Of course, you can flash here and everything like that, but I just want to see what the black box data looks like. Of course, I'm actually connected to Betaflight configurator here, and so if you want to change your settings or whatever here, you can do that. Just a quick little look at this, but that's not what I want to do. I want to go ahead and bring up the black box data, so I'll just disconnect here and bring up black box analyzer, and we'll load up the data from the flight controller, and detected the SpeedyBee right away. Connect. Okay, so I think let's look at one of these bigger files here, and it's going to download the data. Now it's very fast, it's 3.4 megabyte file, and the Wi-Fi in this one's definitely a lot faster. Okay, so we should be able to scroll through this. You can see the black box data. Pretty interesting. You can see the stick movements here. Let's go into the. You can see the animations. This looks a lot like the black box analyzer on the PC. You see the props moving, stick movements. Pretty cool. And pause on a certain spot. Gives you data there. Let's hit the analyzer. And here's the noise output. So I did turn on RPM filtering here, and I'm using 48 kilohertz for the low end. I think on the high is by RPM. That's pretty standard. And yeah, there's no noise here at all. Let's take a look at this here. Yeah, so it looks like the RPM filtering is working really well. And you'll see in the flight footage that the tune's pretty good. There's hardly any prop wash at all. But anyway, that's a quick look at the black box analyzer in the SpeedyBee app, and you can do that all wirelessly here and then connect up to any of the USB ports on the flight controller. Let's go ahead and exit out here. But anyway, here's some quick little DVR footage from one of the flights. Generally speaking, I think the EXC on this is pretty much overkill for the setup here. I'm just running on 4S on some 2550 kV motors. These are 2306 motors, I think, from T-Motor. Nothing special. Plenty of power for the setup here. I'm just running a GoPro Hero 6 for the GoPro footage. I'll put the link to the GoPro footage if you want to see that real steady, stabilized GoPro footage down in the video description as a separate 4K video upload. But here, just the DVR footage from the FPV camera, so you can see if there's any sort of like prop wash oscillations or any kinds of other sort of strange things. And honestly, there wasn't hardly any. Using this setup here with the settings I put in there with the preset PID tune from the Betaflight configurator presets, flew really, really well. I'm better than I think I could tune personally. So if you're like, well, where's the CLI dump? Well, you just use the presets from Betaflight Configurator 4.3 and you'll have all my settings here, and just turn on RPM filtering and you'll be good to go. And then these are the Vanny style props from GemVan. So if you want to duplicate this setup, all the parts will be listed down in the video description. But yeah, I thought it flew pretty good on the preset tune with RPM filter turned on. And like I said, this ESC is probably overkill for this 5-inch. They are saying that this ESC has got a lot of like sort of crash proofing built in with the TVS diode and then a very large capacitor. So I think, for people that are racing and perhaps crashing a lot and also flying on 6S, those things are going to be a little bit more coming into play, more of a factor than in my freestyle setup here. So in that case, yeah, if you're going to be crashing a lot, with a lot of voltage spikes, etc., then this stack is probably something you want to check out and give it a try. Maybe you don't, obviously, care about the LEDs. You don't have to buy those and plug those in. Of course, that's just sort of a gimmick. If you like, bling and stuff on your quad. But yeah, for this setup, I think for freestyle, definitely going to be pretty good. And with the voltage spike diode and the large capacitor, if you're racing and crashing a lot, especially if you're flying on 6S. I think the stack's going to be hold up pretty well. So obviously, we'll have to see how these hold up over time. I'm going to keep this setup here as a sort of a freestyle go-to quad for the future. So maybe I'll have a report on this in terms of durability, maybe in 6 months or so down the line. I'm going to try and keep this setup together because it's got the SpeedyBee frame and the basically the latest, greatest stack from SpeedyBee in this quad as well. So it should be a nice test setup going forward. All right, that's going to do it for this video. Got any questions, let me know. Talk to you guys in the next one.